The hum of the operations floor was a symphony I had conducted for 2 decades. From my glass-walled office, a space I'd earned through years of 16-hour days and logistical wizardry, I had a perfect view of the heart of Nexera Labs. It wasn't just a workspace. It was a living, breathing organism that I had nurtured from a fledgling idea into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. I could see the complex dance of forklifts, the coordinated ballet of inventory management, and the focused expressions of the team members I'd personally hired and trained. Each blinking light on the server racks, each perfectly stacked pallet, was a note in the melody of my life's work. It had started 20 years ago, not in this sleek, modern facility, but in a dusty, cramped warehouse with peeling paint and a perpetually leaky roof. There were only 12 of us back then, huddled around space heaters in the winter, sharing lukewarm coffee from a single, sputtering machine. Robert Brennan, the founder and then CEO, was a man with a brilliant vision but little practical knowledge of logistics. We were a team, a family, really. He had the dream, and I had the grit to make it a reality. I remember us sketching out the first shipping routes on the back of a napkin, celebrating our first $1,000 order with cheap pizza and even cheaper champagne. I built the systems, wrote the protocols, and managed every crisis, from catastrophic supplier failures to sudden blizzards that threatened to grind our entire operation to a halt. I was the bedrock upon which Nexera Labs was built. But bedrock, over time, can be mistaken for old stone. The change had been gradual at first. It started when Robert, with a proud gleam in his eye, announced that his son, Tyler, would be joining the company as Chief Operating Officer. Tyler was a caricature of a modern business school graduate. At 32, he walked with an unearned swagger. His suits were too sharp, his smile too smug, and his vocabulary was a minefield of corporate buzzwords he used to mask a profound lack of understanding. He spoke of synergizing verticals and optimizing paradigms, but couldn't tell a bill of lading from a packing slip. He saw my floor, my symphony, as an outdated relic. The comfortable, functional break room I designed was replaced with a sterile, minimalist space with uncomfortable metal chairs and an espresso machine no one knew how to use. He implemented a new, agile workflow management software that was so convoluted it added hours to everyone's day. My suggestions, born from 20 years of hands-on experience, were met with a patronizing pat on the shoulder and a breezy, "Thanks, Helen, but we're looking to innovate, not stagnate." The last 6 months had been a slow, agonizing slide into obsolescence. I saw the writing on the wall, etched in the condescending emails and the way he'd pointedly exclude me from strategic meetings. He was clearing the old guard to make way for his own team of young, bright-eyed graduates who, like him, had impressive degrees but no practical experience. He was convinced that youth automatically meant innovation. So I prepared. Quietly, methodically, I began my own strategic transition. James Morrison, the vice president of operations at our biggest competitor, Veltre's Optics, had been trying to recruit me for 3 years. Each time, I'd politely declined out of loyalty to Robert and the company we had built together. But loyalty is a two-way street, and the road at Nexera was fast becoming a dead end. I started taking James's calls. In the evenings, after the hum of the floor had died down, I sat in my silent office and created my arc. I meticulously documented every password, every vendor contact, every shipping protocol, every nuance of the inventory management system I had designed from scratch. I compiled 2 decades of process improvements, of hard-won knowledge, of relationships I had personally cultivated. I didn't see it as theft. It was a backup of my own work, a portfolio of my legacy. I saved it all to a heavily encrypted personal drive, an insurance policy against the inevitable. The day came on a Tuesday morning. The summons to Tyler's office was delivered via a curt instant message. His office was the antithesis of mine. Where I had photos of my team and charts detailing operational efficiency, he had abstract art and a single, pretentious orchid. The air was cold, sterile, and smelled faintly of expensive cologne. "Let's be honest, Helen," Tyler Brennan said, leaning back in his oversized leather chair with that smug smile I'd grown to despise. It was a smile that didn't reach his eyes, a thin, cruel slash across his face. He didn't offer me a seat. Women your age, he continued, steepling his fingers, just can't keep up with where this industry's headed. Technology moves fast, and frankly, I need people who can adapt. The words were like tiny, sharp icicles piercing my composure. 20 years. 20 years of my life, my passion, my soul, dismissed as if I were some outdated piece of equipment, a rotary phone in a smartphone world. My heart began to pound a furious, frantic rhythm against my ribs, a war drum of pure, unadulterated rage. I could feel the heat rising in my face, the tremor starting in my hands. But on the surface, I was a placid lake. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind 100 times. I forced the practiced, professional smile I had perfected over decades of dealing with difficult clients and even more difficult colleagues. I folded my hands neatly in front of me, a picture of calm acquiescence. I completely understand, I said, my voice a marvel of steadiness. His eyebrows shot up slightly. A flicker of surprise, maybe even disappointment, crossed his face. He'd clearly expected an argument, tears, perhaps some pathetic pleading. He had braced himself for a dramatic scene, and all he got was composed agreement from a 56-year-old woman who had seen enough corporate politics to know which battles were worth fighting and which were a waste of breath. This one was not a battle. It was the prelude to a war he didn't even know had been declared. Well, that's refreshing, he said, a little flustered, shuffling papers on his desk that he wasn't actually reading. I was prepared for this to be more difficult. Most people don't take terminations so well. I'm not most people, I replied, allowing myself a small, genuine smile this time. I stood up and smoothed the front of my navy blazer, a silent assertion of my own dignity. When would you like me to finish up my current projects? End of the week should be fine, he said, already turning his attention to his computer screen, dismissing me from his attention as easily as he had dismissed me from my job. Human resources will handle the paperwork. I walked out of his corner office, my head held high. I passed the glass walls that gave him a king's view of the entire operations floor, the floor I designed, optimized, and managed for 2 decades. The irony wasn't lost on me. He was firing the very person who'd created the systems that made his family's company profitable enough for him to have a corner office in the first place. My name is Helen McRae, and until 5 minutes ago, I was the operations director at Nexra Labs, a tech distribution company here in Indianapolis. I'd started as a logistics coordinator when the company was just 12 employees cramped into a rented warehouse. Now, we employed over 200 people and moved millions of dollars worth of equipment every month. I'd built the shipping protocols, designed the inventory management system, and personally trained most of the department heads. But Tyler didn't see any of that. He saw a middle-aged woman who didn't fit his vision of a modern, dynamic company. What he didn't know was that his smart business decision was about to become his worst nightmare. I'd seen this coming for months, ever since Robert Brennan started handing more responsibility to his son. Tyler had been making changes, most of them poorly thought out. He'd hired a bunch of recent graduates with impressive degrees but no practical experience, convinced that youth automatically meant innovation. The truth was, I'd been quietly consulting with Veltre's Optics for the past 6 months. James Morrison, their operations vice president, had been trying to recruit me for 3 years. Every time Nexra Labs landed a major contract or I streamlined a process that impressed the industry, James would call. Helen, we need someone with your expertise, he'd say. Name your price. I'd always declined, loyal to Robert Brennan, who'd given me my first real opportunity in logistics. But loyalty was a two-way street. And watching his son systematically disrespect the people who'd built the company was wearing my patience thin. The morning of my termination, I'd already been scheduled to have lunch with James. What Tyler intended as my farewell meeting had just become my final interview. You're free, James said, grinning as we sat in the quiet corner booth at Romano's downtown. When can you start? Monday, I replied, taking a sip of my iced tea. The condensation on the glass felt cool and grounding against my fingertips. But there's something you should know. I slid a thick, neatly organized folder across the table. I designed every operational system at Nexera. The shipping routes, vendor relationships, inventory protocols, all of it runs through processes I created. James leaned forward, his expression sharpening. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying that Tyler Brennan just fired the only person who truly understands how his company operates. And I documented everything. He opened the folder, his eyes scanning the first few pages. This is comprehensive. 20 years of process improvements, vendor contacts, and system specifications. All completely legal since you developed them, and there's no non-compete clause in my termination package. I had checked. Twice. The irony was beautiful. Tyler had been so eager to get rid of me that he'd rushed through the paperwork. No retention bonus, no consulting agreement, no restrictions on where I could work. Just a standard severance package and a quick exit. We've been trying to crack into Nexera's client base for years, James said, flipping through my documentation. These shipping routes alone would save us millions in logistics costs. Their 3 biggest clients all have contracts coming up for renewal in the next 60 days, I mentioned casually. And I happen to know exactly what terms they've been discussing. James signaled the waiter for champagne. Helen, I think this is going to be a very profitable partnership. I smiled, thinking about Tyler's smug expression just a few hours earlier. He had no idea what was coming. The rest of that week at Nexera was almost amusing. I watched from the back of the conference room as Tyler announced the strategic personnel changes to the assembled staff. As we move forward in an increasingly competitive market, he announced, we need leadership that can adapt to technological advances and industry evolution. That's why we've made some strategic personnel changes. Confused glances were exchanged. Most of these people had worked with me for years. They knew exactly what strategic personnel changes meant. Helen McRae has decided to pursue other opportunities, Tyler continued, not even having the decency to acknowledge my presence in the room. We wish her well in her future endeavors. After the meeting, a steady stream of employees stopped by my office. Janine, my assistant operations manager, was the first. This is insane, she whispered, closing my door. Half our vendor contracts are in your name. The shipping software was your design. How does he expect us to manage without you? You'll figure it out, I said diplomatically, continuing to pack my personal items. Tyler seems confident in his new direction. What I didn't tell Janine was that I'd spent Monday and Tuesday meticulously documenting every password, every vendor contact, every process detail, and emailing it all to my personal account. Not theft, just a backup of my own work. After 20 years, I knew which systems would be the first to break down. By Wednesday, I'd already started consulting remotely for Veltries Optics. James had arranged for me to begin immediately, and we were moving fast. Their legal team had reviewed everything, confirming that my termination package included no restrictions on sharing industry knowledge I'd developed independently. Thursday morning, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to Patricia Holmes at Westel Distribution, our biggest client. Patricia and I had worked together for 8 years, and she'd always made it clear that her loyalty was to me personally, not to Nexera Labs. Helen, I heard rumors you were leaving, Patricia said when I called. Please tell me it's not true. I'm afraid it is. Tyler Brennan felt the company needed younger leadership. There was a long pause. That boy has no idea what he's lost. You've saved us millions in efficiency improvements over the years. Well, I'm joining Veltries Optics now. If you ever want to explore alternatives to your current distribution arrangement, send me a proposal, Patricia said immediately. Westel is always interested in working with professionals who understand our needs. The second call went to Gerald Perkins at Microsystems Corporation. The third, to Andrea Sullivan at Tech Solutions Plus. Both conversations followed the same pattern. By Thursday afternoon, Tyler's strategic personnel change had just cost Nexera Labs their 3 largest clients a combined value of $12 million annually. And he didn't even know it yet. Friday morning arrived with deceptive calm. I was scheduled to finish my last day at Nexera, cleaning out my office and supposedly transferring my responsibilities to Tyler's new operations manager, a 28-year-old named Bradley Brown with an MBA and exactly zero experience in logistics distribution. Tyler had hired Bradley straight from graduate school, convinced that fresh thinking would revolutionize their operations. What Tyler didn't understand was that logistics wasn't about revolutionary thinking. It was about relationships, experience, and understanding the thousand little details that kept complex systems running smoothly. I arrived early, as I always had, and found Bradley already at his desk, frantically scrolling through spreadsheets on his computer. "Good morning, Bradley," I said pleasantly. "How are you settling in?" He looked up, stress evident in his eyes. "Helen, thank goodness you're here. I've been trying to understand the shipping protocols, but nothing makes sense. The software seems to be crashing every time I try to generate a route optimization report." I nodded sympathetically. The system can be temperamental. "Did you update the vendor portal passwords?" "They reset automatically every 90 days. "Vendor portal?" Bradley looked confused. Tyler didn't mention anything about vendor portals. "Oh." I paused, letting the implications sink in. "Well, there are 17 different vendor systems that need to be synchronized for the routing software to work properly. Each has its own access credentials and update schedule." Bradley's face went pale. Could you walk me through it?" "I'd love to help," I said, glancing at my watch. "But I'm actually due at Human Resources in 10 minutes to finalize my departure paperwork. And then I have a lunch appointment." The truth was, my lunch was with Patricia Holmes from Westel Distribution, officially signing the contract that would transfer their account to Veltries Optics. But Bradley didn't need to know that. I spent the next hour in HR, going through the standard exit interview process. When they asked if I had any concerns about the transition, I smiled politely and said that Tyler seemed very confident in his new direction. Just as I was gathering my final belongings, my desk phone rang one last time. "Helen McRae, Operations Director." I answered out of habit. "Helen, it's Gerald Perkins at Microsystems. I need to discuss our contract renewal." "Of course, Gerald. What can I help you with?" "Well, I got a very interesting call from Veltries Optics this morning. They presented some compelling alternatives to our current arrangement. Before I make any decisions, I wanted to speak with you directly." I could see Tyler through his glass office wall, on a phone call of his own, gesturing animatedly. He looked pleased about something. "I appreciate that, Gerald, but as of today, I'm no longer with Nexera Labs. You'd need to speak with Tyler Brennan about any account concerns." "That's exactly what I was afraid of," Gerald sighed. "Helen, you've been our primary contact for 6 years. You know our needs, our timeline constraints, our budget parameters. Frankly, we're not comfortable working with anyone else." "I understand completely. Business relationships are built on trust and experience." "Where are you going?" "Because wherever it is, Microsystems Corp would be very interested in following you there." I looked across the office at Tyler, who was still on his phone call, probably telling someone about his brilliant strategic decisions. "I'll be working with Veltries Optics starting Monday," I said. "James Morrison is their operations vice president. Very professional organization." "Perfect. Have James call me Monday morning. We'll want to discuss transitioning our account." As I hung up, I noticed Tyler's phone call had ended. He was staring at his computer screen with a frown, clicking furiously at something that apparently wasn't working. The real fun was just beginning. Monday morning brought the first wave of panic. I was settling into my new office at Veltries Optics when my old cell phone started buzzing with missed calls from Nexera Labs. 7 calls in the first hour, all from different numbers. James Morrison knocked on my door around 9 a.m., grinning like he'd won the lottery. 3 contracts, he said, holding up a folder. Westel, Microsystems, and Tech Solutions Plus. All signed with us this morning. Combined value, $12 million annually. "That's wonderful," I replied, though I felt a small pang of something, not quite guilt, but a recognition of what this meant for my former colleagues. Tyler Brennan called our main line 4 times in the last hour, James continued. Apparently, their shipping system crashed this morning and none of their vendor portals are responding. I nodded thoughtfully. The quarterly authentication update probably triggered. All vendor passwords reset simultaneously on the first Monday of every quarter. It's built into the security protocol. And Tyler doesn't know this? Tyler doesn't know most things about operations. He assumed it was all automated. I pulled up the new client files on my computer. Have our logistics team schedule installation meetings with the new accounts. I want to do site surveys to optimize their delivery protocols. What I didn't mention was that those vendor passwords weren't just randomly generated. I designed the system myself, with access codes that followed a pattern only I knew. Tyler could eventually figure it out, but it would take time his clients didn't have. My personal phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed Robert Brennan, Tyler's father and the actual owner of Nexra Labs. Mr. Brennan, I answered formally. Helen, what the hell is going on? Robert's voice was strained. Tyler tells me you left Friday, and now our whole system is down. 3 of our biggest clients called this morning threatening to cancel their contracts. I'm sorry to hear you're having difficulties, Mr. Brennan. Don't give me the corporate response, Helen. We've known each other for 20 years. Tyler said you left to pursue other opportunities, but this timing can't be coincidental. I chose my words carefully. Tyler felt that the company needed younger leadership, someone who could better adapt to technological advances. I respected his decision. There was a long pause. Tyler made this decision without consulting me. I assumed he had your approval. He didn't. Robert's voice turned cold. Helen, I need you to come back. Whatever Tyler offered you elsewhere, I'll double it. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Brennan, but I've already committed to Veltries Optics. My employment contract began this morning. Then, at least help us transition. Consult for us temporarily. Help Bradley understand the systems. I looked out my new office window at the bustling Veltries warehouse floor. I'd be happy to discuss consulting arrangements. My standard rate is $500 per hour with a minimum 40-hour weekly commitment. Robert was quiet for a moment, probably doing the math. $20,000 per week to fix problems that wouldn't exist if his son hadn't fired me. We'll pay it, he said finally. Finally, I'll need the consulting agreement in writing, along with Tyler's written acknowledgement that my expertise is required. And, Mr. Brennan, I'll also need a formal apology from Tyler for his comments about women my age being unable to keep up with technology. Another pause. I'll talk to Tyler. Take your time, I said pleasantly. Though, I should mention that your vendor authentication lockout resets every 7 days. If the passwords aren't updated by next Monday, you'll lose access to your primary shipping partners entirely. I hung up and returned to my new client files, feeling a satisfaction I hadn't experienced in years. Tuesday brought escalation. Tyler himself called my personal phone at 7 a.m., waking me from a peaceful sleep in my new routine. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to his message while making coffee. Helen, this is Tyler Brennan. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. We need to talk about the operational transition immediately. Our systems are experiencing technical difficulties, and Bradley needs your assistance to resolve some authentication issues. No apology. No acknowledgement that he'd fired me 4 days earlier with condescending remarks about my age and capabilities. Just demands for my help now that his strategic personnel changes were backfiring. I deleted the message and drove to Veltries Optics, where my new team was already implementing efficiency improvements for our 3 new major clients. Around 10 a.m., James knocked on my door again, this time looking concerned. Robert Brennan is in our lobby, he said. He's asking to speak with you personally. Says it's urgent. Send him up, I replied, saving my work. This should be interesting. Robert Brennan walked into my office, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 4 days. His usually perfect silver hair was disheveled, and his expensive suit was wrinkled. He sat down heavily in the chair across from my desk. Helen, I owe you an apology, he began. Tyler told me he'd discussed your departure with you weeks ago, that it was a mutual decision based on your desire to explore new opportunities. That's not exactly how it happened, I said quietly. I know that now. I had a very enlightening conversation with Janine yesterday. She told me what Tyler actually said to you. Robert's jaw tightened. His comments about your age and capabilities were completely inappropriate and absolutely not reflective of this company's values. I appreciate you saying that, Mr. Brennan. Helen, I built Nexra Labs from nothing, and you helped me grow it into what it became. Firing you wasn't just wrong, it was business suicide. Tyler is young and inexperienced. He made a terrible mistake. I leaned back in my chair, studying the man who'd given me my first real opportunity in logistics management. What exactly are you asking me, Mr. Brennan? Come back. Full restoration of your position, 20% salary increase, and Tyler will report to you instead of the other way around. The offer was tempting, but I thought about Tyler's smug expression when he dismissed me, his casual assumption that women my age were obsolete. That's very generous, I said. But I'm quite happy here at Veltries Optics. They value experience and institutional knowledge. Robert's shoulders sagged. Then, at least help us salvage what we can. Our vendor relationships are destroyed. The shipping software is completely locked out. Bradley doesn't even know where to begin. I told you my consulting rate yesterday, $500 per hour, 40 hours minimum. I remember. He pulled out a contract from his briefcase. I had our legal team draft this last night. I reviewed the document carefully. It was comprehensive and expensive, but there was something missing. Where's Tyler's written apology? I asked. Robert winced. He's resistant to putting anything in writing. Legal liability concerns. Then I'm afraid we don't have a consulting agreement. I slid the contract back across my desk. Mr. Brennan, Tyler didn't just fire me inappropriately. He did it with discrimination and disrespect. If he wants my help fixing his mistakes, he needs to acknowledge them publicly. Helen, please. The company is hemorrhaging money. Every day this continues. Then Tyler better start learning about vendor authentication protocols, I said, standing up. I have a client meeting to prepare for. Wednesday afternoon brought the moment I'd been quietly anticipating. Tyler Brennan walked into the Veltries Optics lobby, his usual arrogance replaced by barely concealed desperation. James Morrison had called my office to warn me he was coming up. Send him in, I'd said, arranging the files on my desk. And James? Leave my door open. Tyler entered my office like a man walking to his execution. His confident swagger was gone, replaced by the nervous energy of someone whose carefully constructed world was collapsing. Helen, he said, attempting his old authoritative tone. We need to discuss this situation. Please sit down, I replied pleasantly, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. How can Veltries Optics help you today? His face flushed at the deliberate formality. Cut the corporate speak, Helen. You know exactly why I'm here. I'm afraid I don't. Could you be more specific? Tyler's composure cracked slightly. The vendor systems, the client contracts, the shipping protocols, you designed all of it, and now it's falling apart. We both know this isn't coincidental. You're absolutely right, I said, leaning forward. I did design those systems over 20 years of work, actually. And you fired me because women my age can't keep up with technology. That's not, he started to protest. Let me finish, I interrupted, my voice remaining calm but firm. You dismissed me without consultation, without transition planning, and with discriminatory language. You assumed that innovation meant throwing away institutional knowledge. Tyler shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Look, maybe I was hasty. Maybe I didn't fully appreciate your contributions. Maybe, I smiled. Tyler, in 4 days, you've lost 3 major clients worth $12 million annually. Your shipping system is locked out until next Monday. Your new operations manager is having panic attacks trying to understand processes that took me 2 decades to develop. So help us, he said desperately. Name your price. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. My price is simple. A written apology, acknowledging your discriminatory comments and your mistake in terminating me, posted publicly to the company website and sent to every vendor and client. His eyes widened. That's career suicide. Perhaps, I replied, but it's also accountability. Thursday morning brought the collapse I'd been orchestrating since Monday. James Morrison burst into my office with barely contained excitement, holding his phone and a stack of reports. Helen, you need to see this, he said, spreading documents across my desk. Nexra Labs just lost their primary shipping contract with Continental Express. Their delivery network is completely shut down. I reviewed the termination notice with professional interest. Continental Express had been Nexra's backbone shipping partner for 15 years, a relationship I'd personally negotiated and maintained. Without them, Nexra couldn't fulfill any client orders. There's more, James continued. Bradley Brown submitted his resignation this morning, effective immediately. He sent a company-wide email saying the position was beyond his capabilities. That's unfortunate, I replied, though I wasn't surprised. Bradley was a smart young man who'd realized he was being set up to fail in a position that required decades of experience. My phone rang, displaying Robert Brennan's number again. Helen, please. Robert's voice was hoarse when I answered. Tyler will issue the apology. Written, public, whatever you want. We just need you to help us salvage what's left. It's too late for that, Mr. Brennan, I said gently. Continental Express terminated your shipping agreement this morning. Without them, you can't fulfill orders for any remaining clients. There was a long silence. How did you know about Continental? Because Patricia Holmes at Westel Distribution is on their board of directors. When she told them about Tyler's management style and discriminatory practices, they decided they didn't want to work with companies that treated experienced professionals that way. This will destroy us, Robert whispered. Yes, I agreed. It probably will. Tyler made a choice last Friday. Now he gets to live with the consequences. I hung up and returned to my work, helping Veltries Optics integrate 3 major new clients into their expanding network. Outside my office window, I could see delivery trucks bearing our company logo, efficiently executing the improved protocols I designed. The future looked very bright indeed, and I was finally working for people who understood that experience and wisdom were assets, not liabilities. Looking back on those pivotal days, I realized that Tyler's attempt to discard me had actually freed me to flourish in ways I never imagined possible. And his downfall served as a powerful reminder that respect and experience should never be undervalued.